Welcome to Try Not to Overthink It, where we explore the intricate landscape of mental health, well-being, and everyday life. I'm RJ. Join us as we dive into insightful conversations, share expert perspectives, and personal stories that shed light on the various dimensions of mental wellness. Whether you're seeking inspiration, guidance, or a deeper understanding of the human mind, this podcast is your safe space to engage, learn, and navigate the journey to a happier, healthier self. If you're new to the channel, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification button so that you don't miss the next topic, the next conversation, or the antics that we have in our videos. So today we are going to be speaking on the subject of the importance of fatherhood. Khalil's actually a father. I am not. This particular topic was inspired for those of you who are not followers on TikTok. We drop content every day. Called Mindfulness Minutes, where we talk about different subjects that are therapeutic in nature most times, but other times they are a glimpse into, things that we have gone through or things that we think about or things that we have experienced as providers and even as just regular people. So Khalil had posted some about, minimizing positives. And during the course of his Mindfulness Minute, he was talking about how the lack of his father impacted him when it came time for him to be a father. And so that got me to thinking, and it got me and inspired me. And I was like, hey, we need to do an episode on this, and we need to talk about this, especially as men and as clinicians, like the impact of how your father being there and not being there can impact you both as a male as well as a female. So we're gonna unpack this topic today. So what do you think about it, Khalil?
Well, doing the Mindful Minute, I did touch on the fact that by nature, when you grew up in a household that doesn't have your father in it, you are still going to look for people to kind of guide you and instruct you, male figures to guide you and instruct you. And I had some good ones. I had uncles, cousins. I had people who were good at what they did for a living, and they were good at raising their families. So I did have some people to look at, but in my own family, it's mostly women. And I don't want to make anybody think that, a woman is not capable of raising a man, but there's going to be some things missing, right? Me and my sister talk about that. And she was like, yeah, the way you complain about certain stuff, she's like, man, not that it's not okay to complain, but she would be like, man, you over here complaining like a woman. Just go ahead and do it, right? 'Cause they'd be like, I mean, at a young age, I was the only male in the household. It's like, hey, go out and mow the lawn. Go ahead and get the trash. You're the only man. You're supposed to take out the trash, right? So, of course, at 12, 13, you go buck back at it and be like, why I got to do it? You know what I'm saying? Why can't my sister do it? And she'd be like, you complaining. It's because you grew up around too many women, right? And then, the older we got, we were able to look at that in a different mindset and aspect, because it did touch a lot of different areas of my life where, because I had so many women in the household, I had a tendency to separate men work, men's different thing men would do as opposed to what women would do, right? And I never really wanted to cook growing up. My grandmother did a lot of the cooking, or my mom did a lot of the cooking. Those weren't things I wanted to do, because early on, I was always told to separate what was for men and what was for women, right? And later on, I had to learn how to cook. You can ask my mom. I said, living by myself, I ain't going to starve. I'm a big boy. I said, I'm going to have to learn how to cook. But these were things I was reluctant to do. And then the things that were supposed to be geared towards what men would do, I still didn't have that good role model around me. So I picked up on a lot of those things late. I didn't learn how to change oil or something like that in my car, or change tires and stuff till I was a good 17, 18. I had a lot of friends, they were already doing that stuff at 12 and 13 years old, but I didn't have that in the house. So, a lot of that brought on insecurities in me. I did not think I knew how to be a good father, because I didn't see one. All right. I didn't think there were certain things that I could teach a male, because I was like, man, I didn't have anybody teach me. I had to learn it on the fly. Right. those things impacted how I viewed things, how I perceived things. And, in my life, I talked about that in the Mindful Minute. I kept thinking I was lacking something. And that affected how I went about life and how I went about working at certain jobs. I was blessed to be able to do a lot of maintenance work. I worked for the local 26 electrical union in Washington, D.C., got to learn how to use tools in my early 20s, and had some good people show me how to do certain home improvements and stuff like that. And I can still do those today. But I always was scared. I was like, man, I'm probably going to be horrible. I'm not going to know how to do this, and I had people actually kind of help me through that. And they were like, hey, what I mean, it's just a tool, man. You're going to learn how to use it. But it was very scary for me to do certain things because I didn't have that knowledge. And so a lot of people, when they don't have that knowledge, and the fear will keep them from trying new things and going out on a limb. So when I had a child, I was like, man, I don't know how to be a dad. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I let her mother dictate about most of what we were doing with our child because I really didn't think I had any good input. And that's for me thinking that I was lacking something. And, I remember my mom having a talk with me. She was like, you can do things with that child. You can teach the child there's stuff you can do. And she was upset because I had taken this background or taken like a back seat in bringing up my child. So, all those things affected me. And if there's any fathers out there that feel as if they don't know what they're doing and they've never been taught, now is the time to learn. We learn by our mistakes. There's no parenting handbook or rules. You have to learn by putting your hands to it and trying it, and going by your morals, your convictions, your values, and instilling those in that child. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, it becomes one of those things where for us, one of the important things that I like that what you touched on was the role model aspect. As a father, you serve as the role model, particularly for your sons, who look to you for guidance and how to behave as a man. For your daughters, the daughters benefit from being seen how men should treat women, and which can influence ultimately how they engage with males when around their age when they start going getting into relationships and developing life connections and things of that nature.
Right.
It's important. I cannot state this enough as a therapist, as a person that had his father in his life, and then of course I had uncles. One uncle in particular, my uncle Carlos. When my dad was busy or my dad had other things going on or he was traveling for work or whatever, my uncle Carlos was there. My uncle Carlos taught me how to do different things. Like he taught me how to do things with my hands, build things with my hands, fix things with my hands. He was one of those type of dads where he could have worked all day, but still would make time to play with me and my sister when he came home. Still made time to play with me and my sister, because at the time when me and my sister were younger, he didn't have any kids. And then even after he had, a daughter, my cousin, he still made time for me and my sister. Taught us how to, do things like ride our bicycles, put bicycles together, do all different types of things, make things. I mean, he was just that type of man. And for me, seeing that from both my actual father and then from my uncle Carlos inspired me to be that type of man. There are certain things that I do to this day because I saw those two men do those things. There's ways that I carry myself. There's ways that I treat people because I saw those two men move. I saw how they moved, which then inspired me to be just like them. Mm-hmm. And, and even like when in having this conversation with my sister said the same thing, and seeing how our father and how my uncle, interacted with my aunt as well as our moms and different things of that nature, she recognized, hey, if men that I get involved with can't do that, then right. Hey, I can't be with them.
Right. It's a good way to go.
Yeah. And ultimately, like I said before, having that, paternal figure in your life, it doesn't have to be particularly your father. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be a father. It can be a father figure, but somebody, keyword, consistent and actively engaged with that child is invaluable. I cannot tell you how many clients that I've come in contact with where we're sitting down and we're unpacking things. We're peeling back the layers. We're getting to the good stuff. And we're getting to the brass tacks, the meat and potatoes of the stew. And then it boils down to, I was lacking a father in my life.
Right.
I didn't have someone to emulate. I didn't have someone to look to for guidance. I didn't have someone to kind of, bounce ideas off of, because that void is there. And like you said, I don't want any of our female listeners or female viewers to hear what we're saying and take it as we're saying that as a woman you can't raise children by yourself, because that's not true.
Right.
That's not true. You guys can. You guys have done a great job. But when you are raising, and I have this conversation with people all the time. I've had this conversation with coworkers where they're like, "Oh, I don't need my child's father don't got to be in my kid's life." Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yes,
they do. And the reason that they do is because any lesson that you're giving your child is only 50% of the lesson.
Right.
Just imagine if you only had 50% of your rent. How long are you going to stay housed? You got 50% of your car note. How long are you going to be driving that car?
Right.
You get up to the register to pay for your groceries. You only got 50% of the money to pay for those groceries.
You put half of that back.
You putting some of that back, or you giving that car back, or you getting up out that house or that apartment or that condo, wherever you staying. So when you are sending your children out into the world and they've only gotten 50% of lessons, you are sending them out in the world for them to be underprepared, under-equipped, and, underinformed in regards to the ways of the world, because there's a men's version of the lesson and then there's the female version of the lesson.
Yeah.
Both sets of children, whether it be female or male, need both sets of the equation. They need both sets of it.
Yeah.
Because anything less than both sets of it, you're setting your child up for failure and for calamity and disaster.
Well, we see those cycles repeated, right? So, like I was just saying, I've been able to talk to some of my family members about that repetitive cycle. My mother, my sister, my grandmother was divorced. My mom was divorced. My sister's been divorced, right? I've been divorced. But this repetitive cycle of not having a partner, people perpetuate that cycle with the next generation.
Absolutely.
Because, one of the main things is when you see something, instead of teaching it as a valuable lesson, what we do is we actually begin to speak basically death over the relationship. As soon as we see something that we don't like, all right, mostly I even with my mother and my sister, right? She saw something she didn't like in my sister's partner, and instead of saying, "Hey, this is a teachable moment. These are some things that, you should look in to see if, hey, y'all can talk about or go to counseling or try to," it was like, man, if he's doing that, you done made a bad decision. You need to go ahead and leave, man. And so, and my mom didn't say it like that, but in order for people to learn so they don't make the same mistake again, it has to be a teachable lesson, right? And so when parents and other family members are involved in their children's lives, right, we take it and we say, hey, well, let's make this a teachable moment, not just point out flaws and hey, man, that person's not treating you right. No, hey, this is not something you saw me go through, right? This might not be something you saw in any of my relationships, but because there was no model, there was nobody to follow, that is your job to say, hey, well, that doesn't seem like that's right. If that person's with you and they're not treating you with respect, they're not loving you the way you're supposed to be loved, they're not taking care of their child, right? We don't beat the person down. What we want to do is we want to try to correct the behavior and use it as a teachable moment. But too many times, I think we perpetuate the stereotype, well, you can do all right by yourself. You ain't got to deal with that.
Man, when I hear that makes me mad every single time. When I hear people say I can do bad all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this I just had this conversation with one of my coworkers not too long ago, where she was, espousing that, her and her child's father, they're not together. And so, she's on this whole thing of I can do bad all by myself. And so, like I explained to her, yes, you can, but just think about it like this right here. How much easier is it to lift 100 pounds when there's two people versus one person?
Right.
How much easier is it for you to, you know, cover rent when there's two of you guys contributing to the rent versus one of you contributing to the rent?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
By no means am I ever saying that people should stay in a relationship that is unhealthy, that is not fruitful, that is not growth driven. It is not driven by intentionality. It's not driven by God. It's not driven by purpose.
Right.
By no means am I saying that. Never will you ever hear me say that. You'll never hear me say stay when the relationship is dead. When it
Mm-hmm.
is dead on the vine, hey, you might need to leave that alone
Right. Right.
because God's giving you the signs. But what ends up happening is when you take that stance, that hard line and saying I can do battle by myself, you bring that, like you said, you start to speak what is called a self-fulfilling prophecy over yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so you bring that attitude, you bring that thought process, you bring that mentality into your next relationship. So where your next relationship, the guy could be everything that you prayed for.
Mm-hmm.
He could be the person that God, you went through whatever you went through, and God to prepare you for this person that God has brought into your life for this particular reason. And you fumble your own blessing because you're in your own way because your feelings.
Right.
Your feelings and those maladaptive thoughts, those maladaptive behaviors are now blocking you from being able to see that this person right here was everything that you prayed for. Right. And so, yes, you can do bad all by yourself, but it doesn't make you any less than. It doesn't make you weaker. It doesn't make you, incapable of being able to address or handle things, to be able to be a partner to someone and allow someone to lead. Now, by no means, we talked about this in previous episodes. By no means am I telling you, as any of our female listeners or viewers, by no means am I telling you that you should just capitulate and just allow any and everybody to lead you.
Yeah, because not everybody can lead.
Leadership is something that someone has to be qualified to be able to do.
Right.
No different than there's a difference between being a dad and being a father. Being a father, key word here, being a father is someone who inspires and empowers the child to be the best version of themselves.
Right.
Not someone who's going to co-sign stupidity. Not someone that's going to, feed into dumbness.
Mm-hmm.
Not be, instilling discipline and respect and honor and integrity and decency. Someone who does those things, that's someone that's a father. And as I said earlier, it doesn't, being a father, it doesn't have to be someone that actually contributed DNA to this child
right.
or children. Sometimes it can be an uncle, because like for me, like with my niece, I am, for all points and purposes, her older brother and like her father at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have conversations, we talk about different things, we do different things, because at the end of the day, her father isn't in her life. Right. But I, as a therapist, recognize the importance of having a strong male figure in your life to show you what right looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I've said in previous episodes, you are more likely to do what you see consistently, especially as a young child. And so it's important for any young child to see males in their life doing the right thing, being on purpose, being who God called you to be, doing the things that are worthy of leadership. Because again, when you when you walk into a room, you get a feeling of who's in charge and who's not.
Right.
If you got to tell people I'm the man or I'm in charge, you ain't in charge of nobody.
Well, we already know you messed up right there.
Mm-hmm. Right? Absolutely.
Well, and I think you spoke to something that we've touched on plenty of times, right? You have to be able to see it. When people aren't seeing it, especially in certain socioeconomic settings, right? And we know that African American females have the highest percent of single family households, right? And it speaks to something positive, and it also speaks to something negative, right? The positive aspect is that most African American women who are the head of their household are employed. All right, I know we'll listen to all these statistics, and everybody will swear that Black people are broke, right? And we don't work, or we're struggling to find Black jobs, right? But technically, right, the funniest thing is if you check the statistics, which I wish people would do, right? Most single mothers are educated and they are actually supporting their families. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is that you're seeing a single person household. So, like I was alluding to earlier, that almost perpetuates the stereotype for a young girl or even a young man to be like, well, I saw my mom do it by herself. Well, I guess I can do it by myself because this person isn't doing what I want them to do, right? And that's what I was kind of getting at. If it's not modeled, there are certain people, RJ said it, right? That man you prayed for might need some time to get to that person or the male figure that you would want him to be. He might not be there right now, but with the perfect helpmate, right? With that person who's going to encourage you and help you, right? You might turn that person into the leader that they're supposed to be. And it isn't your job, but through other people ministering, mentoring to that gentleman, he might get there. But we have to give people a chance. So when I hear women be like, "Oh, I'm done with him. I can't deal with him," unless it's a situation where that person's on drugs, they're putting their hands on you, or they've had so many issues outside with other women, right, and knocking up other women, all sorts of stuff like that. I'm going to tell you that you shouldn't give up so quickly on a spouse or a partner, right? Because just because you might not have seen that in your life doesn't mean that it's not the way it's supposed to be. And I don't want to get biblical. I'm not trying to do that on people. But I believe we're meant to be in relationship with another human being, right? We cannot do things on our own. We meet people all the time say, yeah, I'll be fine just put off the grid, living out there in the wilderness by myself. I've met people who have told me that, right? As a social worker. And it's well, I don't want nobody to bother me. You still would have to go to the store when you ran out of food unless you had the tremendous garden year round, right? You still would need certain tools to tend to that garden, right? So it's no man can be by themselves. No woman can be by themselves. We are supposed to do that in partnership with our spouse, with our partner, whoever you want to call it, male, female. I'm not even getting into all that, right? But you are supposed to be. We were created to be in relationship with others, right? So what I was really getting to is that I think sometimes we give up on that, especially in the type of society that we're in. We want everything now. We're in that fast food society. It might not come as quick as you want it to come. That relationship, the bond, your ability to rely on that other person, the insecurities, all those things are going to come in to play. And that person might not be the man that he's going to be in the future right now. It might take him some time. And I want women to see that. Like sometimes I think because of the way society is, we throw people to the curb quickly. You're not meeting A, B, or C criteria, and I'm throwing you out. And it can't work like that. Else you might find yourself being alone for a long period of time.
I can agree with that. I mean, I think that, like what you're speaking to is the co-parenting and family dynamics piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have positive co-parenting between a mother and a father, it creates a stable and nurturing environment in which children can grow more efficiently.
Right.
When you have a father who is active in parenting and they contribute consistently, you see the family dynamic be more balanced. And I know that and I remember I was talking about this when I was in grad school with the professor. And, like I explained to her, parenting is like tag team wrestling. I'm a huge
Mm-hmm.
professional wrestling fan. I've watched wrestling my entire life. For those of you who don't know, I'm telling y'all right now, this is, I'm calling it right now, right? Like the Simpsons, like they say the Simpsons foretells the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dwayne the Rock Johnson is gonna be a president before long. Mark my words. Dwayne the Rock Johnson. I'm saying it here on this platform. Dwayne the Rock Johnson is gonna be
Mr.
president.
Ventura, look, he went into politics, so I
I'm
mean,
just saying it's possible.
it's
So,
possible. So, yeah.
but I'm just joking. But if it happens, it happens. Just know you heard it here first. But like I was explaining to her, parenting is like professional wrestling. There's going to be things like if you've ever watched tag team wrestling and professional wrestling, your
Mm-hmm.
partner gets tired, they tag you in. You get tired, you get hit by a bad move, you get tagged in. And it goes back and forth until somebody wins the match. When you look at parenting, that is what parenting is supposed to be. There's going to be things that, as the mother, you are going to be strong in. And so I have to let you lead.
Right.
There, as the father, there's going to be things that I'm going to be strong in. So I have to take the lead. You know, while you're cooking dinner, I may be helping the kids do their homework. Or you may be the parent that's better academically, so you're helping them with homework while I'm cooking. You know, while you're getting the kids, you know, ready for bed, I'm doing laundry. I'm cleaning up. Like, that is what parenting is supposed to be, as Khalil alluded to. It's not supposed to be by yourself.
Right.
Now, again, you know, we can't help that sometimes it does happen to where one parent has to raise and do everything by themselves. But it wasn't intended for that purpose. You know, creating life, creating children was not intended with the purpose of you doing it by yourself. You know, as the example I used before, lifting 100 pounds, how much easier is it to lift 100 pounds when there's two of you versus one of you? It's a whole lot easier. It's still 100 pounds, but it's a lot easier to manage and to lift off the ground when there's two of you versus one of you. So when you look at the co-parenting dynamic, you know, the co-parenting dynamic creates stability in the home. When you have stability at home, your child is more likely to be more stable when they go out into the community, when they go to school. Those children who have stability at home tend to perform better academically. You know, those children who have stability at home tend to be more stable emotional wise, behavioral wise, when they go out into the community and they go to school.
Yep.
And a lot of times, like I said, you know, when I say stability, and when I say stability at home doesn't always have to be mom and dad are in the same house.
Right.
Stability at home can be mom and dad are not in the same house, but they on the same page.
They're co-parenting.
We may not be together, but we stand united in raising these children, because it takes a village to raise a child. So this village all got to be saying the same thing. They got to be preaching the same sermon. They got to be singing the same song. They got to be in the same pitch, the same key, on the same note, and on the same line. We all can't be giving a child different messages, because at that point, I was having this conversation with my dad, with some of my, you know, we were talking about some of my cousins, you know, where he just, you know, I can't understand how this happened, and they're struggling in college and this, that, and the third. It's because they're receiving counter programming.
Right. Mixed signals.
Yeah, they're hearing mixed signals, where one of my cousins, you know, in high school, she you know, she's doing great. Then she get to college and ain't doing so hot. So then when my dad goes to talk to her to figure out what's going on, you know, well, I was told to follow my dreams and my passions. So my dad then asked, well, what are your dreams and your passions? I don't know. So as I told my dad,
I don't know.
As I told my dad, somebody is telling her that. And in someone telling her that, again, because we tend to, for most of us, we tend to lean towards, you know, sayings, messages that align with our worldview. So if our worldview is to be wild and crazy, I'm going to listen to people who promote and preach and talk about being wild and crazy.
Right.
If my worldview is being orderly, controlled, behaved, on my best behavior, on my purpose, on my square, I tend to lean towards messages that say those things. So when you are trying to pull her right, and then other people are trying to pull her left, and those people are in her circle, those people are around her more than you are, when those people tend to feed into what she wants to do anyway, who do you think she's going to listen to? You don't stand a chance.
Right.
But when everyone is on the same page, that's where the stability comes in. When everyone is on the same page, there is no breaks. There is no something else or somebody else is coming in between you and what is being given to that child. And that is where, as I said before, having your father in your life, having a father being a part of your child's, you know, everyday consistent, you know, routine, helps keep those negative influences from interrupting your child's stability. Because as I said, this is everything we're saying on here. You can look it up. The studies are there. The studies, the facts, the figures are all there. Longitudinal studies have been done that show, hey, children who have these things do far better academically, do far better emotionally, do far better, you know, just overall, because they have that stability at home. And that starts with the co-parenting dynamic. We don't got to be married. We don't got to get along. Heck, we don't even got to like each other. But when it comes to this child or
Right.
children,
We're on the same
we
page.
on the same page.
Right.
We on the same page. You saying the same thing as me saying it. I had the same conversation with my charge nurse at work. Because again, people will disrespect her, but then they'll come to me and do what I tell them to do. So when we have conversations about behaviors and work performance, we're sitting down together so people know she's saying is the same thing as me saying it.
Right.
So you disrespecting her is the same thing as disrespecting me, and I don't tolerate no disrespect.
Yeah. Because you all are essentially running a household, right?
Yes.
You have a whole bunch of employees underneath
Mhm.
you. You have clients. All these people are involved in this one system that's working, right? And it's a hospital
Yep.
system, technically, right? So if you two aren't on the same page, and when she's there, all hell can break loose, right? And everybody's cool. She lets them run wild. She has she has less authority over them, and she lets them do whatever they want to do. And then when you come in, everybody sits quiet as a mouse, and it'll never work like that, because every time you're away, people are going to do what they want to do. And the system is not going to be able to flow correctly. Well, the same thing goes in a household where I had a child tell me his parents were divorced, and he was like, well, when I go to my mom's house, it's this way. And then
Hmm.
when I go to my dad's house, it's a little loose, and I can do what I want. And then sometimes I come back, and he was like, when I come back, I forget I got to fall in line, right? And it shouldn't be like that. Of course,
Nope.
I only had one of his parents who I was able to address and talk about that. But I was showing the duality, and I was showing how it caused a dysfunction in the child's mind. Child was like 16, and he was like, I've been doing that since I've been 8 years old or something like that.
Hmm.
So I know I got to act one way when I'm here. And then when I'm over here, I'm allowed to much more freedom, autonomy. I do whatever I want to do. Well, that was causing a chaos when he was at school. There were certain things that were starting his homework, his production was starting to suffer, because every time he went to dad's house, he was doing whatever he wanted to do, and he wouldn't catch up on his studies, right? And it shows you the importance of everybody being on the same page. So all around the board, it's consistent, right?
Hmm.
RJ kept preaching consistency. I do want to reiterate what he said before about going to check some of these statistics about a child that grows up in a two-parent household, or a family where they are co-parenting, right? That means they don't have to be married. They are co-parenting. That child stands to be more successful. And yes, I'm not the biggest statistics person, because statistics can be skewed, but these are longitudinal studies. They've been doing these for years, not just
Decades.
decades, not just on one type of background, but mostly on African American and Caucasian and Hispanics. Those are the three most that they've been doing. And
Hmm.
so you can follow these studies. It's not just on people in Europe. And I know we always was, well, that's a European study. This isn't. They're doing this
No,
here.
right here.
And so when I got to see this, being a social worker, they sent me to school, and I didn't believe any of those statistics. And until I started studying it, I was like, man, this is very, very funny that they're seeing this trend that kids who are in a two-parent household or being co-parented by two individuals who are on the same page, they are much, much more likely to have better jobs, better education, higher paying jobs, right? Longer periods of employment. I mean, it affects everything that child does in the long run. And so I want to reiterate what we've been talking about, is that if you're in a relationship with somebody else, and yes, relationships struggle, there's so many outside variables. If you're struggling right now, and you don't want to be a single house, you don't want to be a single parent household, but if it happens, it happens, right? You still need to look at co-parenting. And I know it's
Hmm.
difficult. Come on, I just did some co-parenting, right? I was with my daughter, and I had to be in touch with my ex-wife all the time about we were doing something for her, getting her paperwork for her passport taken care of. We had to bounce back and forth and do stuff together. We might not be the best of friends, but at that point, She was like, hey, I need transparency from you and I need communication. And I dropped the ball a few times. I was like, my daughter can talk to her. But that was on me. And I took my accountability. I was like, I shouldn't even have had her do that. My fault. I'm sorry. Because as a man and as a co-parent, she needs to be able to communicate with me. I can't just be like, yeah, go ahead and call your mom. That's not fair. It shouldn't be on my daughter. And so when I dropped the ball, I immediately apologized. I was like, all right, I'm sorry I didn't call you. I figured my daughter had already told you. I was like, that was my bad. And she was actually a little surprised by it because she wanted to go off on me. I'm pretty sure if she's listened to the podcast, she'll think I'm about to go in his ass, right? But she didn't, because I apologized and I took accountability and I knew what I did was wrong, right? Because co-parenting, if she can't get in touch with me, she doesn't know what's going on with her child, and we don't live close, right? Of course she should be anxious. Of course she should be upset, right? And yes, everything was for the greater good. We were doing something for my daughter, but at the same time, it's my job to communicate. I don't care how the feelings that I have, whatever is going on with me, should not matter. It should be my child. And a lot of people can't do that. They can't move past the feelings. And that's where we start getting therapeutic.
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you in that. I mean, to me, like I said at the very beginning, I can't espouse the value enough of having a father in your life. And like you said, it doesn't have to be that you're married. It doesn't have to be that you're married. It doesn't even have to be the actual father of the child, the person that or the dad that provided genetic material to create the child. A father is someone who's going to inspire and empower that child to be the best version of themselves.
Right.
And I was listening to Cam Newton's 4th and 1 podcast earlier, and he was reacting to a video of a mom in her Sunday best. She out here teaching her son football, and she understood it too. I mean, she
knew it. She said,
she knew it. You got to get low. This is where you messed up at. This is where you went wrong. Like, she was walking him through how to do his position to the best of his capabilities.
Yeah.
And so what Cam was speaking to was the fact that, as a parent, there's more to being a parent than being a sponsor, because anybody can give you money. Mm-hmm. But actively getting out there and teaching your kid what right looks like, showing them better, teaching them better, being invested in them, like adding seasoning to to them. That's what being a parent is. And so being a father, again, it takes a village to raise a child. And a lot of times the person that the male figure that actually contributed DNA may not be that father that the child needs. Right. Sometimes it may be an uncle, as in my case, or it may be a grandfather, as in my father's case, or my Uncle Carlos. It doesn't matter. As long as there are consistent, active, contributing male figures in that child or children's lives, again, you will see stability from that child. Because you can't build a strong house on a shaky foundation.
Right.
Anybody who's ever any contractor, any builder who's ever built anything will tell you, you can't build a strong structure on loose sand, on shifting sand. You need a solid rock in order to build a strong building that is going to survive the test of time. Right. And so what that looks like is having that father in your life. Like I said before, when you, like, for me, I'm a huge UFC fan. I watch UFC every week. Whenever they have an event, I'm watching it, And so for some of the fighters, they'll tell you, my dad wasn't in my life. My coach became my father.
Right.
My coach became my father. My coach took me and stopped me from throwing my life away. I was going in and out of jail. I was running the streets. I was selling drugs. I was doing this. I was doing that. My coach saw something in me and said, "Hey, you messing up. You hustling backwards. Get in here. I'm gonna teach you something." Right. And so, they started with boxing. May have started with boxing, then went to wrestling, then jujitsu and other things. But by pouring into you something positive and something constructive, I kept you from throwing your life away.
Right.
And for a lot of us, when we are missing that additional ingredient, because again, not saying that women cannot raise a child, not saying that at all. I never want any female viewer or listener to say that. Right. But the impact on society cannot be understated of having a father in your life. Strong father-child relationships contribute to the overall health of society. Children raised, numbers show this. Children raised with involved fathers are more likely to become more productive, more empathetic, and more responsible and more successful when they are out and about and interacting in society. That is something that, again, like, I'm a numbers person. Men lie, women lie, but numbers don't.
Nope.
Everything that we're talking about on this particular episode, you can look up and see the facts. They've done numerous longitudinal studies where they've tested this over decades, and they've seen where, okay, there's a marked improvement in these children who have two parents who are actively involved and consistently involved in
Right.
these children's lives versus these children who were raised in a single parent household.
Right.
Like, those things, as I said before, because, and this is something that I've even had to give my parents their flowers. Boy, and I've said this on this platform, I used to think my parents were crazy. I did. I thought my mama was crazy. I thought my daddy was crazy. I thought my stepmom was crazy. I thought my uncles was crazy. But them keeping their foot in my tail, because I was one of those kids. I was bad as hell. I stayed doing something. I had a smart mouth because I had,
You still had a smart mouth.
I still got a smart mouth, but now I at least am able to think, keep it to myself rather than say it out loud, because my brain works so fast. I'm thinking something, I'm saying it because I just can't help myself. But I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for my fathers. My Uncle Carlos, my dad, my mom's, my Aunt Anna. Just always having a foot in my tail. Because they saw something in me. Like, I had one of my uncles. One of my uncles calls me professor all the time. He, because I've always worn glasses. And so I've always been that kid that was always smart and always liked to read. And so that's what he called me from very small kid, professor, come here. And so them seeing something in me is what has allowed me, and them investing in me is what has allowed me to be as successful as I am. Like, me and all of my siblings, we got degrees with an S.
Right. Multiple.
Because my parents didn't play the radio. Education was important. They were on the same page about that. My parents was like, we ain't raising no dummies in this house.
Right.
You getting them lessons. You ain't paying attention in class. Hey, come here. My parents wasn't playing that. And so, because my parents, yes, they divorced, they moved on with their lives, but guess what? One thing that they never moved on from. Right. They never moved on from parenting us. Even to this day, being 37 years old, my parents still parent me to this day.
Well, and that's what it's about. They're supposed to do that. That's a lifelong. Children are a lifelong blessing, right? Especially
absolutely,
if you live to see them grow up, right? And if you are blessed to be able to live to see your children grow up, you're still going to be able to pour into them. But the only way that happens is if you start when they're younger. Because if I know that, this person never had anything good to pour into me, they never gave me any direction, they weren't there for me. Shoot, by the time that child's 21, 22, 23, they're going to move away from you. They're not going to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've had people who, it's pretty funny when you meet people who have to take care of their parents. And I'm very blessed. My mother was very successful, had degrees and this and that. So I was able to see that and be able to emulate some of that in my life. And she's always been there for me, whether financially, whether I needed someone to talk to, spiritually, all those different things, right? But I have people, and it's sad to see, they've had to take care of their parents. And this isn't even before, I'm old now, but this was before I even got in my 40s, where I knew people who had to help their parents out because their parents were either on drugs or their parents were very unstable, weren't good with money, were displaced from their homes, and they were pretty young in their 20s and 30s. Man, I gotta help my dad out, or man, I gotta help my mom out. She ain't, gotta help pay her bills, right? That's a sad story for someone. And when we see that happen, Hopefully you do have a good relationship with your family, with your children, because you never know how things could turn out for you. So if you don't speak into their lives, if you're not there for them, when you need them, they might not be there for you. So those are some of the things that come, some of the consequences, man. And I know I'm always on my DBT. There is no good, there is no bad, there just is, right? And during that
Mm-hmm.
just is, it's about your decision making. Because I wasn't always blessed with the best situations when it came to co-parenting. All right. I just told you about dealing with my ex-wife. We weren't always on the best speaking terms, right? But because the situation was what it was, I had to make some good decisions. And it's been a blessing that God, because at that time I had to allow the God of my understanding to help me with some things. Because just like RJ, I'm a little different. My mouth isn't just smart. I have a hot temper. So I will say something and I will mean it. And you know what? I'm gonna keep going until we scrap it at that point. I'll keep going, especially if the lid blows off, right? And so I have to be aware of some of those things when I'm dealing with the parent of my child. And I know people's, man, come on, I'm a counselor. I get it. I get it. I've seen it. It's so hard sometimes because you want to go to blows with that person, male or female. I'm gonna just be honest with you. I've heard females say, I can't stand their father. I can't stand. But in the meantime, while y'all are raising this kid, all right, when you're raising this child, you're going to have to put aside all of that and you are going to have to focus on the betterment of that child. Like RJ said, his parents weren't married forever. They got divorced and they still kept pouring into their children. They didn't stop on that note. You get what I'm saying? Just because someone does me wrong, right? Just because somebody cheated on me, or just because someone broke up with me, or somebody took my money and spent it on whatever broke you all up. These children still have to be raised, and like I was saying, you're gonna have to make some good decisions in that moment. You can't let yourself be taken away by anger, malice, hatred. All those things have to be thrown out the window when you're talking about bringing up a child, a precious life. And I don't think we look at it like that. We're so self-centered. Human beings are so self-centered. Well, they mother make me feel some type of way, so I don't even go over there no more. You know how many times I've heard that in my life as a therapist? That's hard for me to take. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
My dad was that type of person. So it's hard for me. Sometimes I have to come back because I don't want no transference to start happening. I got to snap out of it, right? Because that right there impacts me. There's nothing that should separate you from pouring into that child, all right, unless that person's always trying to get you locked up or something like that. Then I understand. But other than that, there should be nothing that stops you from pouring into that child's life.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing about it is, like I said before, when it comes to the children and it comes to your interacting with, your opposite member in this equation, how you personally feel, what you think, what you're going through, none of that matters.
Mm-hmm.
That's inconsequential, because at the end of the day, we're the adults or the seniors in this situation. So every good parent, I should say, because not every parent's the same, but every good parent should want better for their child than they had for themselves.
Right.
You should be pushing forward, abundance and positivity and construct and just positive things. But not everyone does that.
No, they can't.
But one thing that I will say that that I had to applaud my father for, and watching him do it, is the fact that even when he and my mom, or he and the moms of my siblings, he would have to put how he personally felt aside
Mm-hmm.
for just accomplishing the task. The mission had to be accomplished.
Right.
And with in getting the mission accomplished, that meant sometimes I got to swallow my pride. Sometimes I got to take this L in order to get this overall W.
Right.
And, because at the end of the day, it was important for him to break certain negative cycles.
Yeah.
It was important for that. It was important for him to be actively involved and not just be a sponsor in the lives of his children, but actively be involved and be a father. It was important for him to do that. Because again, like I said, A father that is actively engaged can help break cycles of absenteeism and neglect. By being present, somebody like my father and even like my Uncle Carlos, they set a new standard for me and for my children and for my children's children, because I'm going to teach those same lessons that they taught, that they gave to me, which further encourages happy, healthy relationships and strong family bonds. I mean, like I said, your child or children having a father in their life is completely invaluable. There's no price that you can put on that. Right. Because when you see what right looks like, you're more likely to contribute and do that right. And the same thing can be said for doing wrong. When you see wrong being done, guess what? You're more likely to do wrong. But when you are seeing right be done, you will emulate that because we model behavior. We as human beings, we intrinsically will model behavior. We model behavior that gets results. If I see, because, and this is where it gets even further into raising children, because we all intrinsically have different motivations. Some people want to be rich. So if I see that this person did A, B, and C to get rich, I'm going to model that behavior because that's intrinsically what motivates me. Mm-hmm. So when you start at a very early age with your children, because Khalil alluded to this, when you start with actively pouring into your kid from a very early age, you can encourage and help to motivate what motivates them. Right. And I was having this conversation with one of the guys at the barbershop when he was cutting my hair. The things that you don't put into your kid, somebody or something else will. So when you are motivating your child to be a person after God's heart, when you are motivating your child to be focused on staying on purpose, staying in their lane of traffic, doing the right things, being honest, having morals, or as we say in today's society, standing on business. When you are motivating your child to do those things, guess what? And you are walking that out yourself. You're being the change you want to see in other people. Your child or children are more likely to do those things because they've seen it be successful for you. Right. And that is where, as a parent, you have to be the gatekeeper, because we've talked about this on previous episodes as well. As a parent, you have to be a gatekeeper in regards to what your children are exposed to and what your children are experiencing. Right. So they can't be exposed to foolishness and you're expecting them to be successful. Right. Right. They can't be exposed to stupidity and you expect them to be successful. If I'm giving you a task, I have to give you the tools, I have to give you the equipment, I have to give you the space to be successful. Because if not, I'm setting you up for failure. So when you are putting your child out into the world and they are underprepared and, not equipped appropriately, you're putting them into a situation for them to fail. Well, and that is what happens. Go ahead.
And I was about to say, what you're talking to, we just saw it recently with the Michigan school shooter back in 2021 when his parents just recently got put to jail because they
for 10 years
necessary. They were enabling the child, they knew he had mental health issues. They didn't do
had been warned by the school.
Right.
And they didn't do enough to prevent him from doing something that he couldn't take back.
What RJ is talking about, we just seen. You're going to pay the price.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
And I mean, when you think of it, when you think of your child as a piece of clay, like for me, I'm an artist. Right. I made this behind me. I painted this that's behind me right here. This one, and then this one over here. I painted these with my hands, because again, when I was a small child, I had family members that recognized this little guy right here. He talented. He going somewhere. Right, I don't know where that came from. It ain't coming from me, but he got that from somewhere. So, like my uncle would buy me paints and paper and pens and pencils to be able to draw because he knew, he saw something. And so when you see, and being an artist, I can see the potential in things where other people see trash. Right. And so when you see your child as a piece of clay, you can start to chip away the things that aren't consistent or going to contribute to them being the best version of themselves. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the guy that did the sculpture of David.
You're right.
When they asked how he did that, from the marble slab. He said, I just chipped away everything that wasn't a part of my vision of what David looked like.
Right.
So when you, as a parent, as a father, you view your child as a marble slab or as a piece of clay, you can start to tap away the things that don't contribute to them being the ideal vision of who they're supposed to be, who God has called them to be.
Right.
And for most of us, as you alluded to before, because I've heard that same sentiment of I can't stand my baby mama, so because I can't stand, I ain't gonna fool, I'm just not gonna go over there.
Right.
To our male listeners, when you were at that crossroad of not wanting to be in your children's lives because you can't get along with their mother, this is a test.
Right.
This is a test. Because at the end of the day, there's gonna come other scenarios where you can't get along with people. But are you going to allow your personal feelings to impact your ability to make money? Right. No. You're going to suck it up and you're going to charge on, right? Because you got to eat, right? You got to keep a roof over your head. You got to keep clothes on your back. So, again, as I said, this is a test. Are you going to allow your personal feelings to negatively impact your offspring? Mm. Are you really going to do that? Grown man, are you really about to sit here and let your personal feelings get in the way of raising your offsprings, being an active, contributing member of your child's life?
It's crazy.
Real men will tell you, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going out like that.
Right.
Even if I got to settle for every weekend or every other weekend or every other holiday, I'm going to be in my kids' lives. I'm going to see my kids. I'm going to see about my babies. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do to be in my children's lives because I want them to be the best versions of themselves. Right. Numbers show. Men lie, I say this again. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Numbers show that statistically, when your father is there, your ability as a child to be more successful is exponentially higher than when your father isn't there, when you don't have that father figure. That is why for me as a provider, as a clinician, as a therapist, it was important for Khalil and I to speak on this subject today. Because how many people, like when you watch a lot of these shows like Love After Lockup, we talked about that, I want to say previously on an episode. A lot of those young men and women, they started down that path because there was no father figure at home.
Right.
They had nobody to, hey, get on over here. We ain't going over here. So as I said earlier, the things you're not putting into your child, somebody or something else will. So you had other negative influences that were saying, hey, let's go hit this lick over here.
Right.
Let's go over here and go rob this person. Let's go over here and go break in this car. Let's go over here and break in this house. Let's go over here and go do this. Let's go stick this person up. You had people who were able to get into the castle because the gates weren't locked. We weren't being good stewards of the blessings that God gave us. Right. And so for me, as I said before, I had to give my parents their flowers because at the end of the day, I understand things now that I didn't understand then. Because being older, being wiser, being more mature, and being in line with the person God has called me to be, has allowed me to be able to be more aware of the things that my parents sacrificed, the things that my parents did, the things that my parents invested in, the things that my parents didn't invest in, and which all contributed to me being able to be where I'm at now. I can't tell my parents enough. Thank you. I used to think y'all was crazy, but I'll be damned, y'all was right.
Right. So I wanted, before we close, I wanted everybody to know that, if you're a father out there and you're struggling, you don't know, what's going to happen next in your relationship, focus on being the best man you can be and the best father you can be. You might not be able to change your spouse. You might not be able to change your partner, but one thing you can do is you can change you. There's a lot of things that I can't control, but one thing I can control is my attitude, my emotions, right? I can control those things. And I want to keep on focusing on, the situation isn't always as bad as we think it is. I've been blessed. There is no good, there is no bad, there just is. It's about your decision making. I've been blessed to change my trajectory in life, making some better decisions, I have a very good supportive family system. My mother, my sister, my wife, different people have supported me in my journey. But one thing that I got from that is really the only person who was in charge of that change is me. Me. I had to make the change. Nobody else. It wasn't anybody else's job to do that, but me. I wanted to be a better father. I wanted to be a better employee. I wanted to be successful. So I decided, hey, only person I can change is me. And I want you, any of those fathers out there, that this is something you can do. I want you to know you can be better. Signing off.
Gray's is signing off like
Mm-hmm.
freaking working for CNN or Fox News.
Yeah, signing off.
He's tripping. But this is, we're going to end the conversation there. This is Try Not to Overthink It signing out. I'm RJ.
I'm Khalil.
If you like what you heard, like what you saw, we ask that you like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We drop content every day. We drop episodes once a week. We drop mindfulness minutes every day. So please stop by, check us out, like, share, subscribe. Again, it helps us grow. All of you that are a part of this journey, we thank you. We love you. We ask that, that you continue to support us and help us grow and take it to the next level. If you would like to listen to this episode instead of watch it, I don't know why you would, because we are some great looking people. I'm gorgeous. Can't speak for Unique and Khalil.
You see the ball head.
Your boy fine. Your boy is fine. My mommy and daddy made this.
Hey, look, he's still available, ladies. If y'all want to snatch him up, send us some tweets.
Listen, you trying to get me in trouble. You trying to get me in trouble. You trying to get me in trouble. I'm trying to be saved and delivered. You trying to get me in trouble. No, thank you. But we can be listened to on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, pretty much anywhere you can get your audio files. Your mama's house, the dog house, the firehouse. We can be listened to. Your mama's mama, your baby mama, your girlfriend's mama house. We can be found. So this is us signing out, and we will catch you guys next time. Oh, wait. Before we go, please follow us on Instagram as well as TikTok. We will drop the links down below. But this is us signing out, and we will catch you guys next time. Peace.